first. We call Evolve Groundbreaking Jewish Conversations, but even more important than groundbreaking, we have civil, respectful, sacred conversations. That's what we aim for across difference. We do not have to agree. We just need to treat each other like mentioned. And we have four midot, four values that we try to live by. One is kavod, we treat each other with respect. One is tzelem Elohim, we treat each other as if we are created in the image of God, which we are. And Radifat Shalom, we pursue peace. And finally, Machlokot L'Shem Shemayim, we believe that agreements and disagreements are for the sake of heaven, sacred. Okay, so the format is I am going to be engaged in conversation with Rabbi Victor Reinstein, our guest. You are all going to be muted so that recording will go well, but you are all invited at any point to jump into the conversation with a comment or a question by putting it in the chat, and we will try very hard to notice what's in the chat and to recognize you and get you involved in the conversation at that point. So really do not wait until we're finished to ask your questions or make your comments, because we're not going to have that boundary between what's happening. Please feel free to, this is supposed to be a real-time conversation. Finally, you offer these conversations free of charge, but they cost money and they are expensive to produce, and we welcome you, invite you, if you feel so moved at this point or at the end of this conversation, if you find it was worth it, to make a financial contribution, and we will be very grateful. So first, Bob T-Beck, you can't raise your hand yet. I haven't even.
I just wanted to know if you knew that chat is disabled.
Oh, the chat is disabled. Do you know that, Em?
I just changed it. You can chat now. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Yeah, I should have known. Thank you. So Rabbi Victor Reinstein is, among many, many other things over the course of a half-century rabbinic career, we were just talking about length of time, is the founding rabbi of Nahar Shalom, congregation in the Boston area that he founded with his wife in 2005. He has an incredible list of credits to his accomplishments to his name, but rather than talk about all of them, I refer you to his bios. He has a career-long dedication to interfaith dialogue and in communication. Most recently, bridges between Jews and Muslims, not so recently, goes on for a long time. And he is a lifelong social activist who is dedicated to creating a justice and wholeness in which peace flows like a river, which is what Nahar Shalom means, river of peace. And so I'll say one more thing, and that is Rabbi Victor Reinstein and I last spoke directly on December 20th, 1971, when we both applied to rabbinical school on the same day. And this is a reunion of sorts. So I'm really, really happy to welcome you, Victor, to this web conversation. Okay, so I wanted to start. So the conversation is based on your essay, Gamzu V'Gamzu. God, I'm blanking on the name of your essay.
weeping with all who grieve.
Weeping with all who grieve, all those who grieve. And we're here to talk about the value of lives, Jewish and non-Jewish, based on Jewish sources and values, and something that you have quite a lot to say about. I want to start with what I thought was, I don't know what, it seemed like new. It could not have been new, but it's a really new, beautiful metaphor. Ruach Elohim Merachefet al Pnei Tehom, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, a gentle breath hovering over the waters. I never thought, I don't know why, I never thought of the Ruach, the spirit, the wind, as gentle. I always thought of it as like fierce. I like gentle, and how that's the breath that is breathed into us, each of us, all of us, when we're born, just like Adam and Eve in the first chapter of Genesis. I don't know whether do you have anything you want to say about that metaphor beyond that? I wanted to make sure to insert it. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you first, Jacob, and thank you all. It's really wonderful to be here. My only regret is that it's not in person, and yet we couldn't all be together in person. So it's wonderful that to be able to be part of this. And we could talk for a long time just about that phrase. It's so important to me, and is the starting point of my own work with Torah and nonviolence, and the starting point of a long-term work that really begins with that. And I do see it as a gentle breath right at the beginning of Torah, out of the tohu vavohu, the tangle and the void and the darkness. Then we have Ruach Elokim Merachefet al Pnei Hamayim. And the gentleness, I think, is in Merachefet, that a breath of God hovers over the face of the waters. And I see it and feel it as God blowing. It's a birthing breath and creating ripples that flow out from there. And that is the source of what I see as a thread or a stream that flows through Torah. And it's a stream of gentleness, of nonviolence. And sometimes it's more apparent, sometimes it's deeper beneath the surface, and we have to work to raise it up, to pull it out, and to encounter it. And it runs through all of the sections of violence, the harsh passages, as well as the gentle. And it's in the midst of the harshness that it's for us to both remind ourselves and to remind God of that gentle breath with which life began. And in that way, it becomes a source of nonviolence and of gentleness, and ever remembering and reminding of that at the very beginning.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are some, I mean, there's some midrashic sources, and I won't take time now to throw off, but the Beis Aharon, a Hasidic Rebbe, the Karliner Rebbe, actually connects birth in Parashat Tazria, at the beginning of Parashat Tazria, to Ruach Elokim in Bereshit. And so there's sources for that.
Wonderful. And other, that's great. That's great. I also wanted to start with your citation of Secretary of State Blinken, who in answer to the question, are Palestinian lives worth less than Israeli lives? He answered no, period. Right? That was his full answer to that question. And so we're trying to work here to expand on that answer. And I'm interested in your emphasis on weeping for all who grieve, weeping as a mitzvah, as a commandment. We are commanded to weep for all who grieve. Did I get that right? That's
Yeah, I don't know that I specifically spoke of it as a commandment, but I think I would certainly expand on it in that way. Yes, yeah.
yeah. What do we do? So for all the things that we hear from everyone, including myself, about, I don't know what to do. I don't know, how can I focus on October 7th and also focus on October 8th and following, in my heart all at once, both sides. It's a wonderful answer. Weep, right? Grieve, feel for what's going on. It's the first response, I guess.
I think it is the first response. If we can, I think we can weep no matter where we are, in terms of political views and social views, views of war. I think we can all weep because it is so overwhelming. October 7th will ever be a moment of tears and a stream of tears that will never cease. We can all weep. And then and that doesn't diminish. And the overwhelming horror of everything that has followed from there. How can we not weep? And tears, it just say far more than words here. And I think, going back to what bringing up the Secretary of State Blinken's comment, simply no, there's no lesser or greater value to Jewish or Palestinian or any other lives. And I think that we can say that and feel that and know that, even if we also know that if someone attacks our own children, or that we'll do whatever we can to save our own children, to take care of our own children. But we can also understand that that's true for every other parent, for every other loved one and beloved of someone. And so I think those go together. And it's very important to start at that point of recognizing the depth of love and affection that we have for those who are dearest to us, and then recognizing that that's true for all people. There's the beginning of a common bond. And I think if we could take more time to step back and weep and to pray, it may soften some of the words that proceed from where we are in the moment.
Great. Thank you. So I want to kind of take you through some of the texts that you cite in your essay, because it's a wonderful collection. Just added one, Beis Aharon Hazria, on Gentle. So the first one you talk about is a variant, a textual variant. We say, he who saves a life, one life is as if he saves the whole world. but some places it says, he who saves a Jewish life, nefesh b'Yisrael, is as if they save the whole world. So you want to talk about that?
Sure. It's an ancient discrepancy. And I think what concerns me most of all is how each is used today and whether there's a polemic in using one or the other. If you go to the Art Scroll, for instance, or the Schottenstein Art Scroll Talmud, you'll find Nefesh Echat MeYisrael, and it troubles me. I think for a time, I haven't checked recently, even on Sefaria, that was the version that appeared. In its ancient origins, I don't think there's a polemic, and that I base, not on my own scholarship certainly, but on the person I refer to. I think in a footnote, Professor Ephraim Orbach, who wrote a whole paper on this question of which is it. And in my essay, there is a footnote with a link to an excellent abstract, quite a lengthy abstract in both Hebrew and English, to his essay. But he suggests that the original was Nefesh Achat, simply whoever saves one soul or whoever destroys one soul. And he feels that there are different reasons why the variant enters. One, including in ancient sources, is that we're talking about a Jewish court. And it's not likely that the Jewish court would have been adjudicating between a Jew and a non-Jew, especially in a capital case. And just prior in the Mishnah to that statement, verses are brought in by the judges concerning Cain and Abel, and as a warning of what can happen, and the bloods of Abel crying out from the earth, meaning all future descendants. And when we're talking about Cain and Abel, we're certainly talking about a universal context. And so he suggests that the change originally was not polemic. I mean, that's my term here, but simply reflecting a reality. And then he thinks also there are some later cases where the official censors, who some of whom were Jewish, felt concerned for the Jewish community, that if they were seen to be so negative to non-Jews, regardless of ancient context and polemics, it was better to leave it out. And so some were left out for that reason. So on one hand, in its origins, I don't think it is polemical, but unfortunately, I think today it becomes polemical. And I mean, there's even a Mishnah, a edition of the Mishnah, more modern one, that puts in Nefesh Echat Mikol B'nei Adam to emphasize of all humanity. But I think today it can become dangerously polemic. And if that's how we quote it today, as whoever saves a Jewish life, then a point is being made, and I think it's a dangerous point, and we have to really be careful with how we use the sources in that way.
Really important. So then we go to V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, and the question is, who is reacha? And there's a disagreement between Rabbi Akiva and Ben Azai. I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I mean that's really a classic starting point in this whole conversation. Um, there is a wonderful essay that in a book that I got, oh gosh, probably 40 years ago. The book is actually, it's old, in the early 70s, I think, called Modern Jewish Ethics, um, uh, but edited by Marvin Fox. And in it, there is what for me has been a formative essay ever since I first read it, an essay by Professor Ernst Simon. And the name of the essay is Who is the Neighbor We Are to Love? And he brings these sources. And just a quick aside, because I truly want to honor Professor Simon Alav Sholem as truly a tzaddik. I had the opportunity. This is an aside. I apologize, but perhaps it.
Whatever you
Um,
say, we want to hear.
um, when I was a student long, long ago in Jerusalem, I had been studying another important figure in this conversation, Yehuda Magnus, Rabbi Yehuda Magnus, who was the first president of Hebrew University. And he was a pacifist, and had tremendous difficulty in the States. He was part of a leader of the New York Kehillah movement. Notably along, well, but he left the States after World War I, came to Palestine, eventually became president of Hebrew University, the first. He was part of the Ichud movement, the binational state movement with Buber. Um, and others, and Ernst Simon was part of that. And I called two people who I knew I somehow got the courage to inquire how to reach. And I got to meet with both Mordechai Kaplan, Oliver Sholem, and with Ernst Simon, each in their homes. And the experience with Mordechai Kaplan, I have to say, was terrifying, but it was it was wonderful. It was truly an amazing experience talking with him alone in his study. And then I went I was able to meet with Ernst Simon, and when I came into his home, he invited me to come when I reached out to him, and spread out on a table were all kinds of materials, original primary material from the Ihud movement. And I said, wow, did you do this for me? And he said, well, I wouldn't be a student of Buber if I didn't do my homework. And in fact, he was the executor of Buber's estate. But then we sat down, and I was wearing a kippah. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a kippah and put it on. He said, I only wear this for special occasions. Um, and so I connect that only because I had no intention of telling that story, but I think it underlies so deeply the meaning of and something of the neshama of the writer of this so ever so important essay called Who is the Neighbor We Are to Love? And he certainly takes the universal approach to who the neighbor is, but lays out many more sources than Rabbi Akiva and Ben Azai, with whom he starts. And Rabbi Akiva says the most important principle in Torah is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. And Ben Azai is wary of that, and takes what certainly feels like a far less interesting and compelling statement simply from chapter 5 of Bereshit, that Ze Sefer Toldot Adam. This is the book of the generations of humanity. And while it's far less compelling, it's clearly universal. And that was his concern, that Rabbi Akiva's principle could be interpreted narrowly. And indeed it is through the tradition. One of the most narrow interpretations is Rambam. Maimonides says that the neighbor you are to love, who is like you, is the observant Jew who is like you. And that's as narrow as you can take it. So it leaves out, many Jews as well. And so that's where the debate begins. There are those, and particularly Rabbi Louis Finkelstein, alav hashalom, who argues that Rabbi Akiva's principle was meant universally. And the Ravad, as we look at in who's referred to in my essay, says that who is like you? Here, the one who would be scorned or the one who would be cursed and robbed and injured is one who is with you, meaning you may be talking about someone who is simply like you and already with you. Therefore, it says God made the human in the likeness of God. And who it is that you scorn, who is it that you curse? It's God. If you're mistreating someone. And I won't take time to go open up other sources, but Avot Rabbi Natan, which I also footnote in my essay, makes it even clearer than that, and asks, are you going to love the teacher but not the student? Are you going to love the artist but not the work? And goes through all of these examples and makes the case for the universal understanding of Rabbi Akiva's point. So I'm sorry, I could keep going here.
What you're here for. That's what you're here for.
So I'll pause and see where you want to go.
And I'm particularly interested in the Ravad, a Posquier, 13th century, Provence, France, because, and when I think of universal, I think of a wonderful time like America before 2016 or something, where we were all like one. We were universalistic. We didn't feel endangered. But he lived at not such a good time in which there was real persecution of Jews and Talmud burnings and stuff. It was not a friendly time for Jews, and yet he says this thing. So it's not only when we are treated well that this applies. It's even if when we're trying, can say God keep the czar far away from us, but that's about as far as you should go.
Yeah. I think that's very important, and that some of the, there are so many teachings of this sort that really emphasize the universal. And we can certainly pull out the opposite as well, but many of them emerge from very difficult times. And I think that is important because it's a way that I think an ideal is maintained even in the midst of harshness and hard times, and I think whenever I speak of in that way, I think, one of the best teachers of that is Anne Frank, aleh shalom, who writes in her diary, I need to hold my ideals because someday I may be able to live them. So I think you're right to look at that. The Ravad is not writing from a rosy time and certainly not looking through rosy glasses. But again, that's also true for many of the universal teachings that we can draw on.
Yeah. So in that line, I think I want to talk a little bit about about all of the terrible things that our traditions say about non-Jews. Shvo chamatcha al hagoyim, that would say at the Passover Seder, pour out thy wrath upon the nations, and the characterization of Jews as morally inferior and as untrustworthy, and locate that in a time of powerlessness, when you can say a lot of things for a lot of reasons when you are being oppressed, that aren't so nice. But what changes in 1948, or certainly in 1967, is all of a sudden you can say those things and do something about them. All of a sudden you have power to act on things that were said when you were just venting, when you were just screaming out for help. So that there's a change, even that we need to look at between, it's not just that some people thought that Jewish lives are more important than non-Jewish lives, but that even those who were not saying, even though, so but at the point at which you can make policy based on that principle, it changes the whole moral and real effect of that attitude. And you allude to that when you talk about theological catharsis, political fantasy. So I wanted to invite you to expand on that.
I think just as, on the one hand, I said a few moments ago that there are a lot of universal teachings, and maybe one or two I'll try to bring in still that aren't in the essay, but many of them do come, such as the Ravad, who we spoke of, do emerge from times of difficulty and distress. But then there are also those cries that are cathartic, like Shvo Chamascha, pour out your wrath at the Seder, in the Haggadah. And there are others. I mean, certainly in Chabad, that I refer to in the essay, in the Tanya, great Kabbalistic work, but which makes very clear that Jewish souls are worth more than non-Jewish souls, even that non-Jewish souls are on the level of animal souls. And we can look at some of that as cathartic, but I think we also have to remember again that there were those who had a very different view, even in times of great trial. And this tension plays out through our history and becomes so critical once there is a Jewish state with an army that has power. And then what happens? And what defines our relationship to non-Jews at that point? And we can hold off on going into the moment and views of certain members of the current government in Israel, but it becomes a critical tension. And I think we have to really then work with that tension. And while the tension between the universal and particular, I think, is always one of the most important tensions, we need to hold in harmony and keep it well tuned. Now, in relation to power and Jews and non-Jews, it becomes a matter of life and death. And that has been wrestled with too. I don't know if you want me to go on here, in terms of sources, as we've talked about. One of the sources that I speak of in my essay, there's a few modern, relatively modern sources from Rabbi Tamaris in the early 20th century. But the one that I think is so important and personally so meaningful to me is Rabbi Avraham Yehuda Chaim. And he's, certainly not well known. It took me, I tried for a very long time to find copies of his work. But he is a voice in the wilderness, and in some ways, I truly I study his work because I feel a sense of familiarity with his loneliness. You can just feel the loneliness and wonder, is who's listening to him? And he died in I think 56. His early life is in Ukraine. And his whole life was lived in the face of tremendous challenge for Jews, of tremendous difficulty and pain. Some of his early writing is in response to the Mendel Bayless blood libel trial while he's still in Ukraine. And then he comes to Israel, Palestine in the 30s and is there. He dies, as I say, in 56, I think, right around there. But he was a Chabad rabbi, and he remained a Chabad rabbi. I've seen a letter exchange between him and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Tubak, I guess, and he always saw himself as a Chabad rabbi, and he came from a Chabad royalty, and yet he spoke in such universal terms, and so that's in the midst of tremendous difficulty. In his writing on the Holocaust holds a certain humanity, in spite of the suffering, in spite of all that is being endured. And then his writing in both pre-state and post-48 is just remarkable. I quote some of it, but he, central to some of his writing is lo tirtzach, the commandment, you shall not murder. And he begins this essay, lo tirtzach, yisod zeh mishutaf lechol ba'ei olam, that this is the foundation that joins all who come into the world. There's so much. I won't take time here to read, from his work, but he says the kedusha shaveh lechol, holiness is equal for all. Basis ha'olam, the basis, the foundation of the world. So in response to your question, Jacob, I'm taking this as that's someone who's writing in the midst of tremendous pain for the Jewish people, writing, soon after the Holocaust, the early years of the state. He's seen what happened in Europe. He's lost so much of his family. And here he's able to say such things from a deeply rooted context. And so I don't think it's one or the other. There were those who spoke universally when it was possible. There were those who spoke very particularistically as catharsis, but there were also those voices who represent a constant. Whatever was happening, they were seeking to bring out the humanity that they saw as central to preserve if we're going to be who we are as Jews and as people.
Thank you. I should just say, this was a particularly important piece of Torah that you offered, because I was a 17-year-old Baal Tshuva at Kfar Chabad in Israel, and I should just say, just to emphasize what you said. So you start with studying the Tanya, which is their primary book. And right away you go into there are 4 kinds of souls. There's plant soul, animal soul, human soul, and Jewish soul, right? So there's at the very basis of our being, it's the metaphysical foundation and architecture of your of the way you see the world, is that Jews are in a special place. And from that, I think related is how someone who actually becomes Jewish, takes 10 generations for them to really get a Jewish soul. It's not a conversion. A Jew by choice is not sufficient, because this soulness, this Jewish spirit, is something that you need to acquire over a long time. And it's mind-blowing, really, to me, to think about Rav Chaim coming from that milieu and saying what you just read. It just it opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah, I think it is. And there were others, even from the time of the Baal Tanya, that again, I don't want to stop the flow as you see it, Jacob, but I would just note a work from the 18th century called Sefer HaBrit HaShalem. Sefer HaBrit HaShalem. I spend a lot of time trying to bring out rabbis' voices that aren't, that I think need amplification. That's the work of Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu Horovitz. And it's remarkable, especially writing in roughly the same time, and as a Kabbalist, as the Alter Rebbe. And this is just speaking earlier, as we were speaking of love of neighbor. One of the parts of his work is called Mamar Ahavat Re'im. So the essay on love of neighbors. And he writes in the 18th century, Mahut Ahavat Re'im. So what is the essence of love of neighbors? Hu sheyeh ha'adam ohev kol min ha'enushi, that a person should love every type, every human type. And then he goes on and says, me'eze am sheyeh, whatever people they're from, v'yeh me'eze lashon, whatever language, shehu adam bidmut b'tzalmo kamohu, that this one is in the image, the same image as you are created. And clearly that's not simply about Jews. But yes, Rav Chaim is I think unique in the I feel when I read his works, I feel his loneliness, and the fact that he remained a Chabad rabbi. As I say, I'll just show his photograph in the first volume of his work, because I just find it to be so warm, if you can see. It's just there's something so warm in his poem. And there are other contemporary or modern, 20th century figures that we could speak of, but he really stands out in that way.
So I wonder if I can draw you into a conversation not about sources, but about what's going on now. So with this, with all of this fortification, knowledge of these sources, how does that affect your view of the current war in Gaza and the massive loss of life?
Oh, oh,
I'm sorry.
you
I didn't
know,
warn you
don't
when I ask this.
don't be sorry. It's it's the context in which we're talking about all this, and I think it is the really, I have always felt this gamzu v'gamzu, this and also this, and the need to hold different diverse realities, but I never have used that term until now in the midst of this shattering time, and it came, you know, it's and the first the first thing is to weep, and it's just for all of the horror, for all of the pain we felt on October 7th, the pain that just continues and continues. And I am simply not able to put aside one or the other. And I struggle, which I certainly try to convey, to express my own struggle in the essay. It's how to find a place. And I refuse to give up one or the other. And I refuse to rewrite history. And it's, I need to be able to stand and to weep with my own people. I need to be able to stand and to weep with Palestinians who are also part of the family. And practically, it becomes so difficult because it's not where so many are on either side of the divide. And I have tremendous difficulty with some parts of the Jewish world who, and I say, I say all of this with love and respect for those that I don't feel feel able to stand with. I feel so much difficulty with parts of the Jewish world that forget the pain of the Jewish people, and in weeping for Gaza. We have to weep for Gaza. I mean, we have to do everything we can, but we still need to hold our own people. And I am utterly bereft when I come into contact, Jewish contexts, and there are no tears for Gaza and no tears for Palestinians. And it's that place, that loneliness that I feel with Rav Chaim, is where to stand and with whom. And I'm seeing my dear friend and Chevra Kadisha colleague and Mark Schaefer here in Boston, who was present at a ceasefire gathering last week that I spoke at following an imam. And I'm very careful with where I agree to speak, because I don't want to be drawn into or identified as being of a particular, of negating one or the other. And so I spoke, and there was counter voices across very narrow police barricades who tried to drown out everything that was said in the ceasefire and call. And it was one of the most painful moments personally in the midst, apart from the great source of pain, but to have people, Jews, drowning out my own call for release of the hostages. Well, they started yelling, "Free the hostages," and I tried to stop and speak to them. And I find it, and ironically, earlier the same week, I had precipitated some tension with Jews, with colleagues who I felt were not paying enough attention to Jewish pain. and it was all in the same week. And then I encountered a friend at a Jewish communal gathering, a friend of many years, who said his wife was on the opposite side on that night. And I just could barely keep from bursting into tears, someone I've known for so long. And he asked if I was willing to talk with them. And I said, of course. And I'm just waiting to hear back, because all we can do is talk and try to bridge the chasm where it is most personally. So I don't know if this is helpful at all. I just, it's very personal.
I think it's very helpful for each of us to hear um, what you and what one another are going through. Thank you for opening up like that. I'm going to throw two more things out. I don't see any indications that anyone
Mm.
else wants to talk, so I'm going
I think I saw one. Was there? Maybe
to.
not. Yes.
Um, am I wrong? Does someone want to ask or comment? Or, no. So first, it occurs to me that maybe this whole conversation should not be about the respecting and loving those who are not Jewish, but rather those who are Jewish, who are committing what look like, like the settler youth, or, who are beating and killing West Bank Palestinians, which I think is even clearer example than what's going on in Gaza, although I don't know how to grade them. So I heard you say that you respect those who disagree. And I just want to say that's a madrega that I don't even aspire to attain. The other comment is about trauma. And so I understand people that I know in Israel who are so traumatized by October 7th atrocities that they're actually able to say, just kill them all, or pox on their house, or and not pay attention to what that means on the ground. And so there's a question about what to do about PTSD, never mind post, what to do about the very human response to trauma that elicits that kind of really awful, destructive emotion. You want to comment on either of those? We have a few minutes.
To some degree. And maybe I'll just say here, just to leave a moment, I wasn't sure I would suggest it, but I thought maybe I could close with a prayer that I've written, that I used for that moment last Thursday, and that I often close my teaching with. But I think that this is, I mean, certainly there are people with real expertise in regard to trauma and how to respond. And so I think that's important to engage with people with expertise in trauma. I think I think for myself, in engaging with people that differ with me greatly, is, and who, some in Israel, some here, is truly to cry together, to hold, and to just acknowledge the pain. It's way beyond the political, and to try to look, is this where we've come? Where do we need to go? What do we need to do beyond this moment? And I think, I go, when I say respect, people that differ. I mean, respect may be the wrong word. I mean, there are times in people that differ in politics with whom I deeply respect, but it's how to find that love that is deeper than what one is saying in the moment. You know, I think that Reverend Martin Luther King said it so beautifully. You don't have to like everyone, but you have to love them. And I think it's something that, yes, as you said, Jacob, I think we need to think about in regard to our own people. It's a very strange, it's a very strange circle of events has brought me this year to, I give a weekly drash in a Sephardic Mizrahi synagogue, one morning a week. They differ with me tremendous politically. And I have to be very careful. And at first I felt, I don't want to go into this. Why? And what I have found is that I don't speak about politics at all, but I speak about that gentle breath that hovered over the face of the waters and all of its manifestations in each week's Parsha and how we work with that, trying to inculcate gentleness into the larger conversation. And one of the leaders of that community came up to me on Purim morning, where I had davened in the morning after the Megillah reading, someone whose politics are so different than mine. He came up to me and he said, "What do we do with all the violence in the Megillah?" And I just thought, wow, this is why we need to talk with each other. And, you know, so yeah, it's so hard. But we have to stay in it with each other and try to transcend those police barricades and all the other dividers that keep us apart.
Let me invite you to that prayer. To share.
I suggested it, and then I'm feeling some hesitation. It's very much always in process, but I'll share it as it is for now, because it really emerged as trying to draw out an essence from the essay that I wrote. Brich Rachmana Malka de Alma. Blessed is the compassionate one, sovereign of all worlds, whose embrace encompasses all. Help us to find our way in this shattering time. Open our hearts to hold and to weep with all who grieve. Gamzu v'gamzu, this and also this, learning to hold diverse realities as part of a greater whole. Let not grief become a source of revenge, not for Israelis or Jews in our common bond, as we hold the pain and horror of October 7th, and not for Palestinians, Muslims, and Christians, as they hold the pain and horror of the suffering endured ever since. May the bombs stop falling and the hostages return from the agony of their captivity, borders opening for delivery of food and life-saving aid, broken hearts and broken people joined across the divides of our own making. Give us the courage to hope, to turn from the ways of hate to the ways of love, seeing through tears your image in each one, with plowshares from swords newly fashioned. May we learn to till the trauma-strewn fields of each people's pain until flowers bloom. Help us to turn away from war and its futility, that we might yet bring our peoples near to each other and to you, compassionate one, and from out of the shattering to build together peace, shalom, salam.
In your song. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you all who are here. So appreciate being able to talk together.
Would you be open to sharing that tefillah with everybody who's here? I could distribute it.
Sure, I'm happy to send it to you, and it's
Thank
fine to share. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, may this be the start of wonderful things.
Amen, amen.
Yep.
Chul shalom. May we all go toward peace. Thank you.